All right, welcome back to Judging Bouncing Balls. We've got a first today. We've got two guests instead of one, which is going to be awesome. So, Joe and Bill, thanks for joining us. Toby, how we doing?
We're good. We're good. A little pickleball tonight. Another championships run. Just going to say it. Some of the
Wow,
pickleballs guys said they were going to listen. So I got to give a shout out to the
wow.
pickleball game. Yeah, pretty
You
intense.
like the Bill Belichick of pickleball?
But I won $25, so I think I'm now a professional. I think my amateur
Nice.
status is taken from me, which is kind of stinks, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. So, Joe and Bill, before we get to introduce you, do you guys play pickleball?
Joey,
I,
take it
I,
from us.
I have played. I'm not sure I'm past amateur status, but I have played. With that said, I am competitive enough that if it ever works out, that I'll throw Bill in there with me. But we will take you guys on and have a little friendly competition.
All right.
Ooh, that
All right.
that'd be
Yeah.
fun. I've never played before, but I would be down for that. That'd be good.
I think I
Trust
played
me,
in gym
you would be
class.
fine, Jeremy.
Yeah, gym
What was
gym
that,
class is the
Bill?
last one. Gym class is the last one here in high school. So after that, I would say Joe and I have gotten. We dabble in a related game, but racquetball is something Joe and I have gone toe to toe many a time and enjoyed that. And he whooped me at first, but I would say he's probably man enough to admit that it wouldn't be close anymore the other way. I got him pretty much every game.
Ooh,
I'm in on
ouch.
that too. Played for years. I like the small courts. Anything
Yeah.
bigger than that, I get tired.
Just an idea for you too. If juggling bouncing balls gets to the point of having some good merchandise selection, maybe a Bill Belichick short sleeve hoodie would be a solid
Ooh,
selection for
I
you.
like it. I like
I
it.
like that.
Just a suggestion. I liked it.
Well, awesome. So let's start with Bill. Why don't you give us the rundown on what you do, who you are? Give us a 5 minute bio on Bill, and then Joe will let you introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, if I mean basically right now I'm the head baseball coach at Amherst High School, and that's pretty much just something I do on the side. My day job, I'm now the director of customer experience with Zaleski Sports. That's a TV version of high school athletics throughout central Wisconsin. So just trying to make that product available to parents. But my story, I grew up in Whitewater. My dad was my head baseball coach of Whitewater for 21 years. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was getting a front row seat to how to take a take a program that wasn't successful and then just create an atmosphere and a setting that makes that whole program successful. Now, again, when you're a kid, I didn't realize that. I was just enjoying the ride and being the bat boy on teams. But 21 years in coaching, and he brought in 2 state championships and appeared at state 2 more times and 13 conference titles, and all of that's just on the field. What I really saw was how he created a youth program and built relationships with all of those families and all those parents. And again, left after I came through high school. I left and went to Winona State for Division II baseball. I redshirted my first year, which really a difficult thing to do. I think that's people don't talk about it enough. Redshirting and watching everyone else play for a year is really difficult. Right up
Mhm.
until the second year when I tore my shoulder and had to medical redshirt. That was even harder. So then 2 years of redshirting at college, a tough experience so far. But it's amazing how, not to be a cliche, but the hardest things in life inevitably will result in something awesome. So that next year, unrelated to baseball, I went to Germany for a business internship. Just a friend of a friend who said someone did that for him and he'd help us out and make it possible. But I was rehabbing, so I brought a glove and cleats. The coach in Hamburg, Germany was Canadian, so he spoke English. He let me work out at the facility. And then one thing led to another, and I decided to play that summer. And to do so, if you're a foreigner, you have to sign a contract. Contracts and NCAA don't go well together. So I had to make that choice abroad and kind of on the fly. And it was difficult at the time, but in hindsight, great choice. I just decided that was the end of my college career, and I'll play over there instead. Really cool experience. So afterward, I got married, and the wife and I bounced around to Minnesota, and I coached freshman ball a little bit at Owatonna. And then we went to Illinois and hated that experience, hated the state, hated our jobs. It was annoying. So we moved back, and jobs brought us to Point. The housing market made me sell our first house, and at that point, we had a dog and a kid. I wanted to get into coaching at Point, but right now the reality is to coach at Spash, there's a line, out the door and around the block to try and get involved. And I'm not going to be an assistant coach, the seventh coach on a staff for 20 years.
Yeah.
So I looked at Pacelli, and that was a long wait too. Coach Sankey's got a great thing going, and I'm not interested in competing. He's a great guy. Again, he deserves it, not me.
Mm.
So I thought it was going to be over. I was going to get into refereeing and umpiring and play amateur ball until I die. And then the housing market, like I said, I sold a house. We bought another place. We had 2 kids at that point, and it happened to be in the Amherst busing turnaround. So I went sniffing around and assistant coach for 1 year in 2018. After that, the head job, the coach currently just walked up to me after about a month and a half and said, I was waiting for somebody competent to come take the program. So handed it off to me in 2019. Was a great year, fun. I was learning a ton. 2020 got canceled because of the crazy COVID stuff. And then 2021, we won our first conference title in 10 years. In 2022, we went 28-0 and went to state and lost that in the semifinal at state. So a 28-1 season.
Wow.
Really, really fun stuff. It happens quickly, though, really quick.
Impressive.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Wow, that's great success in a short period of time. That's awesome. So we're going to come back to that for sure because there's a lot to unpack there. But Joe, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, so a little different. Joe Seubert. Right now, I'm the development director for Special Olympics. I've been doing that now for about a year and a half, and really prior to that, my main career, I was with the Y for a number of years. And so out of high school, I went to Oshkosh my first year or so. I was going to do football. I was going to be a receiver, and kind of one of those things you get to 2-a-days and yeah, I mean, I loved sports all through high school. Had some injuries and things like that. Battled through those, but then I don't know, got to college, and again, Division III. No support or no scholarships on the line, and it was just one of those things where I just kind of woke up one day and just said, I really don't love it anymore, and I kind of want to walk around campus and not be on crutches or in a wheelchair, and so walked away from it. And then with that said, I also kind of lost how to study and how to just live life to some degree because, in high school, that's all I did. And so my grades suffered, when I was in Oshkosh, and ended up going back to Marshfield and, did the 2-year campus, worked on the grades. But at that time, I also went out for the basketball team and just kind of got centered again, and did that for a year, and then transferred back to Point, or transferred to Point with some friends, and finished in the next 3 years. And so when I came to Point, I'm like, all right, well, I need a job. What am I going to do? And always enjoyed sports and kind of customer service. And so started at the Y, part-time, just as a referee and official and a coach. And 20 years later, that turned into a sports director position, and lastly, the associate exec, until COVID hit and kind of flipped me on my head a little bit. But, during that time, I mean, just to be able to coach and teach kids the fundamentals and all sports was certainly a lot different even back then than it was or is now. And I think then during that time, I did that for about 10 or 12 years, and then started having kids of my own. And, obviously Jeremy, our girls played together with soccer, but it was a tough position to have when, your own kids start to travel and become more involved. You kind of wanted to travel with them. And so that's where some of the progression of the job change happened. But, obviously pay increased as well, more responsibilities, which was, again, kind of the natural progression. But was fortunate enough to be able to kind of coach along the way with my daughter and help her along. I've had some great coaches growing up, but also had some coaches that didn't do it the right way, in my opinion. And so I wanted to make sure that my kids always had that person that was always going to be there, always going to show up, be prepared and ready to teach the game to them, whatever that game was, soccer, basketball, or whatnot. And so fast forward, daughter's now 14. I have another one 5 years old, just getting started again. So we're kind of going through the cycle again, but I wouldn't change it for the world. It's amazing.
Awesome.
Wow, those are impressive.
So I wanted to ask you, I wanted to ask you both, like, so you've obviously been around a lot of youth sports coaching at a young level. Bill, did you say I missed, did you have kids, or do you have kids currently?
Yes. Yep. I have
So,
an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so you're kind of almost similar to me then. From a like we have 4 kids, and it's there's a lot of there's a lot that can be taken away from coaching young kids. So I'd be curious on maybe Bill start off and then Joe, like what when you're teaching really young kids or coaching them, what are some of the things that you want to do to like you mentioned turning around a program, Bill. What are some of the things that you kind of institute right away as a coach when you help with youth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a a therapist or someone that knows a lot about the psyche of human beings, but I interact with my kids in an awful fun way at home. It's clear to me when they're having fun and when they're not. So at a certain, I mean, especially anything, I would say anything 6th grade and lower, you can gauge a kid pretty quickly if you just have high energy and make it exciting, and you can read their faces, read their body language, and know who's engaged and who isn't, and then just make sure you keep it exciting. And that's my responsibility as a coach or as a director of a program, is just to make sure, gauge your audience, read it, make sure it's working, and then
Hmm.
continue to try different tactics to keep them engaged. So baseball is not a game that has a lot of movement. I would say a problem we have in my sport, the first introduction to it is t-ball, which is the biggest circus on the planet with moving pieces everywhere, and there's danger and hazards, and the parents are sitting around right on top of the field. It feels
Yeah.
coaches don't really know how to keep it engaging. So the first experience people have in my sport is typically a negative one or a slow one. The parents are more into it than a kid who's picking dandelions. So I just decided that's my responsibility first of all, to show up as a coach on time and prepared, to have not drills, because drills sounds like work. Have
Yeah.
fun and create 2 or 3 fun drills. All kids want to do is hit and run bases. So let's give them that. We don't have to fight any further. As we do it, once I have a little fun, in practice 3, then I'll interject something in between that has this weird glove that you have to wear on this hand, and then you have to stand here in the batter's box. Everyone has to learn 2 positions today. That kind of stuff, just intro level. But if you come in with the wrong atmosphere or just too laid back
One
or
thing first off,
unprepared,
no,
a 7-year-old can see right through it, and you'll lose his interest, and it's not going to gauge.
No, I like that. The first time that I ever did baseball with my son,
no, I was going to say
I thought
both
he had a great
pretty
swing. I'm like,
impressive
he might be a
backstories. I mean,
baseball
I went, to
player.
be honest with
He
you, I
did
went to
not like
college
it.
for
The standing
associate
around was
mechanics there
what
to
threw
have
him out of it in T-ball, and he ended up
graduate at
quitting.
some point.
Sorry,
Might
Toby, I
took a
cut
little
you
bit
off.
more time than most, but it is what it is. But I got one question for both of you. You said, Bill, that you were trying, you wanted to be in the Stevens Point school district and maybe Pacelli and that. But you ended up at Amherst. And I always wondered, we've talked about it here, that being in the Bayport district, right? It's the University of, it's a machine, it's 2,000 kids, versus that small town feel where you get to know the 7-year-old at T-ball, or Joe, you're coaching young basketball where these girls are together through. And is that the benefit? I mean, you turn a team around pretty quick, right? For Amherst now, you're playing at you're 28-0 and 21, but is that kind of I see it too much in bigger cities where the coaches, they don't pay attention to the youth. They don't get that build up, and they don't know their name, because let's be honest, if the head varsity coach knows your name, even if you're 8 years old, you're pretty excited about it. So have you found that small town? I've been to a ton. I've been there a ton of times, so it's also a small little town, but. Is that kind of intriguing to you now, that you would rather stay in that small town of field than maybe go to a Pacelli or even a bigger city?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Of course, we all make choices in our lives, and sometimes it's not for the right reasons, or sometimes it's for a reason that's fine. But it ends up being a better choice once you kind of settle in, and you'd never do it different. So it's one of those for me. I didn't go looking for a small community. One thing I really believe, no matter what we're doing as leaders of young people, if you're in charge of something, you don't have to do it a certain way. You can have a plan and have a strategy, but that doesn't mean you can't deviate from it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be flexible to make sure that you're using whatever resources are around you to make whatever you're working on better. So to apply that to baseball in Amherst, yeah, exactly what you're saying. My strength is my youth and energy and strategy and planning, but then match that with the fact that I will do everything I can to go out of my way to not only know every 8-year-old, every 7-year-old that's in baseball, but know their parents, shake a hand, drive my wife nuts by coming home an hour and a half later than a game because I've striking up conversations the whole way home. To your point, I use that as a really good strength of mine. If I was the Bayport baseball coach, I think that would be awfully difficult to do. There's just so many bodies, so many people, but instead he has different strategies. He has different assets that he can rely on to make things work. So I would say you have to just be able to use whatever resources you have to put together the best pie you can bake.
It's funny. I don't disagree with that, Bill, but from a different perspective, I look at, again, Stevens Point or even some other smaller communities, and specifically girls basketball. We're such a softball community, and certainly I think volleyball is picking up a lot of pace, and where some of that is hard now to talk about Toby, growing a program. Kids are spread out thinner now, more now than ever, and so that's where it becomes challenging. And again, if you don't have dedicated parents and volunteer coaches at a young age to teach the fundamentals and the basics and to give the kids, boys or girls, success, that's when they start to fade away, right? And so now in a small community, if we have 3 or 4 fade away at 6th, 7th grade, and now they just continue on. By the time we get to high school, right now we have 8 girls in 8th grade basketball. That to me, that hurts. That's tough. And so by the time senior year comes, what do those numbers look like? As opposed to, again, a Bayport and some of these larger communities, pick of the litter, right? Someone goes down, next one up mentality. And then too, like one of the things I get jealous about at times is the amount of opportunities in a bigger city, whether it be outside coaching, facilities, the amount of extra gym space or field space that larger cities would have. And again, Stevens Point is getting there. I mean, we're pretty fortunate, but what about an Anago, or what about a Clintonville, or, some of these rinky-dink smaller schools? How are they competing? They have the high school gym, and that is it. They don't have a driveway or some of these other facilities that we can go in and have
we talk
batting
about,
cages
like Kimberly,
year-round and shooting clinics, and and that becomes almost an unfair advantage from a competition
right?
standpoint.
No, and because Kimberly started it, right?
Or
Kimberly's
your guys' markets, we're
we'll
driving
just
2
call it
hours
that. But Kimberly, they built I think a
to stay
50-yard indoor facility.
Yeah.
And then West of Pier built a 70-yard indoor. Now the talk is they poured, my kids won't get to see it, but they pay for it. But they're talking maybe 80 to 100-yard indoor facility. I mean, that's and you're right. How do you compete that? Because you're not going to go to your tax base and be like, hey, everybody, we're gonna multiply your taxes by 4 so we can build it. It just doesn't happen. And we are lucky. Like Mac Rock was, Mackenzie was on. She's in my backyard. I mean, she's 3 minutes away from me. So it's a money game. It's a money grab. I get it. But then again, we do it, so it's hard to complain about it.
Yeah. What's interesting in all this, right, with everything you guys have talked about for the last number of episodes, is as youth sports has certainly grown since we've all kind of come through the ranks, better facilities, more facilities, and all those things. My question, I guess, is, even as Bill and I kind of chat, is what's happened with the backyard? Has the backyard gone away? Meaning that, the parents or the dad just going out in the backyard and just playing, to Bill's point, having fun. I don't know if I see that anymore, even from the time, coaching, kids, kindergarten or pre-K through 6th grade at the Y. It's just, they bring them to the Y and sign up for basketball or T-ball, and make my kid a superstar, or they come in with that mentality. My kid's the next MJ, and it's like, well, okay, yes, I'm showing you the tools of what to do. Do it 2 or 3 more times a week, or do it on the weekend, and that's the disconnect, right? Like, just because you do a camp or you take a class doesn't mean you're polished and you're ready to start traveling, and I think that's where, we've lost the neighborhood play, we've lost the backyard, and now it's, well, little Johnny's on this travel team. I got to sign up Billy Bob now too, and they're going to travel with them, even though their abilities or skill levels are vastly different. They're just going to pay the money and then expect the same result, same playing time, same
Well, I
same
wonder
everything.
where,
And
Bill,
that's
your kids are young.
unfortunate
So, I
because
mean,
it's the
from when
kids that are
my
suffering. They're
youngest
being put in a
was
situation where
11 till 14,
they're
I mean,
not
we
ready for
played
it
in
in many
Howard,
cases.
and then we jumped to Appleton, and now we're jumping to Florida. I mean, it's in 4 years we've made quite a bit of leaps. Now your kids are young. I wonder where this sports will be, because nothing's slowing it down, right? I mean, there is no parents love to go, and they think if we could go to, Wausau is great, but you know what's better? Minneapolis, right? So
No,
you wonder how far your kids are going to have to try, or you hate to say it, is high school sports going to be around to match the clubs, the club spirit. Right.
yeah, and it's a possibility. I guess I still have I have a difference of opinion on a lot of this stuff, just because not every community is the same. I've no doubt that all of those things are happening. I just know, again, to look into Amherst community, I think we have a ton of parents still playing in the backyard. But if you walk up into Wausau, I'm guessing you don't have the same scenario, and again, different ingredients. You're going to have to figure out another path. So to your point, yeah, where are we heading? I don't see it slowing down. Don't get me wrong. I see a ton of the specialization all over all over Amherst and all over related communities. Just that I still do genuinely believe if you have good communication with your leaders, whoever it is, for me, I'm leading the baseball world in Amherst. So I have very clear communication that I know your son's 8 and we're not going to go win a championship right now. But, Mr. Johnson, you need to play catch with your son at least twice a week. He will not improve by just showing up here twice a week. That's not enough. We got to find a way to get him more work. So if you can't, if work's busy, if things are tough, bring him a half an hour early every time. I'll be here. Something like that. He needs more reps. And if you have that with each one, and just whether the parents do it or not, that's not in my control. But I'm clear about that's what I want them to do. And again, maybe you take that same strategy and you apply it to other communities, like Joe mentioned, places like Clintonville or Wapaka, these intermediate towns that are between the Bayports and the Stevens Points. I think if you have people willing to communicate and be clear about how to improve, you don't need to jump into travel ball all
Yeah,
the way to Appleton
I
at the
I
age of
wish you
8
were
and
a
9
dime a
years old.
dozen,
That's
because
just
I
not
think every
necessary.
community could
It
use,
doesn't make them
your
better
kids aren't
players.
playing high school ball, and yet you're
Get the
giving all
basics
your
down and then
time and
challenge
effort,
them
and
when they're
that's
ready for the next
why
step.
your team is going to be good in the future. You get scared at some of these parent coaches that get stuck in a situation, right? And they come in for 2 years and then they leave because their kids no longer playing. And that's where I think if we can look and try to find good people to coach and not maybe run them out of sports so fast.
Yeah.
I'm sure you take phone calls. We all do. I'm sure you've seen it in basketball where, Jesus, you didn't play a kid for 7 minutes, you played them for 6, and someone's got to stop watching the stands, and it's like, and you're still at a young age, right? I mean, your daughter's 14. I have a 14-year-old, and we see it in our soccer club. We got trace cameras, so we have cameras now that they cover the whole field, so you can. An hour after the game, I can tell how far my daughter ran, her top speed, her time on the ball, her time and I talking to our leaders of our program, and they're like, we hate using them because they can see the minutes played, and that's the first thing they look at. 32, game 70. That's not even half, coach. Well, so it's technology is great, but it can also kill us.
Yep. Well, and to your point too, those youth levels, again, I've noticed in the last year, my 8-year-old also really loves soccer. I was a football guy. I don't understand soccer. So I was hesitant to really show up or try and coach. But then I show up to watch, and I'm not the loud parent from the stands, but I'm just biting my lip the whole time. I'd be sore from like chewing on my gums the whole time. I can't sit there and just it's too hard for me to sit there and not say something. Lead them, do something. I don't know anything about how to dribble a ball. I'd pick it up with my hands and dribble it like a basketball. But I can watch a couple of YouTube videos, call a buddy or two, show up and organize a couple of drills and just keep the kids fun and energy and that kind of stuff. So I find it difficult when I assign a coach to handle a team and I don't know that dad very well. I'd be crazy as a leader of a program to just tell him to go do it and not give him guidance or some kind of instruction and hold him to some kind of standards and goals. It doesn't mean it's perfect. He's a dad. He doesn't know, but give him some guidance, help him out a little bit, and then follow up partway through the year. Is he having fun? Just like the kids, if dad's not having fun, he's not going to do this again. And I need him long-term, not just for now.
Yeah.
So, and then I feel even worse. You had a guest on that knows lacrosse. I think, Toby, is it you that played a lot of rugby?
Okay.
Now throw a parent that doesn't know anything about the sport, and neither do the kids, and neither do the fans in the stands. I just feel bad for them if they don't have support. We're setting them up to fail. So that's another piece that you have to be in charge. When you're a leader, that's on you. You figure it out to make sure your team is also supported.
Bill, to that point, again, I'm going to throw you and I kind of under the bus. Neither one of us are really handy, folks around, husbands around the house, right? But our skill set is being able to lead a group of kids. And for us, I think, and maybe the four of us, right, we take that for granted, right? Because again, for many of us, that's pretty easy. That's what we excel at. But it's amazing how many people, dads, moms, or whatever, they're great parents. They're great with their kids, but you give them 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 more kids, it does not look good. It's not as easy as I think as maybe you make it sound or that, we make it look at times, because it comes natural to us. Right. And that shouldn't be overlooked. Right. And so I agree. The best coaches are people that, again, are there, are ready to play, are prepared, have a plan, and keep it fun. Now, certainly as you get older, that's part of the reason why, for soccer, I'm good until about maybe 7, 8 years old. And then I got to pass it off to people like Jeremy and others that really understand the game. The last thing I need is kids start looking at me like, Coach, that's wrong. I'm like,
I don't need
but at the same time, at the youth levels, it's absolutely infuriating when, the program gives us, 30 minutes before we're supposed to play the game to practice and kind of just warm up the kids and things like that. And I got coaches coming up to me 15 minutes in it. Hey, you ready to play the game? No, coach. I got a young team. My kids don't want to run up and down the field. They're going to get shellacked. I'd rather take this 30 minutes, maybe even 40, just to work on fundamentals so they're good in a year or after the season, and they're not going home crying because, we got a kid slide tackling or, sliding and trying to shoot. And I was like, come on, let's see the big picture, to some degree.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Joe, because that was one of the topics tonight when we were talking in youth area football about, what do we want to do next? And this is not it's a conversation that almost all sports have about what is it that we want to promote. And I love, Bill, what you're talking about with making it have fun, because in the end, retention is such a huge part of growing any sport. I don't care what it is. And if the kids don't have fun, they're not going to continue to play. So that's the first one, right? You got to have fun, but then you got to make the clear decision when you're young, when the kids are young, about, do we want to instill fundamentals, to Joe's point, or do we want to try to win, right? And so often I think you see coaches trying to win right away, and that's the focus, and that's unfortunately a pressure from parents too. They want to win, but if you're a really good youth coach, you really don't give a crap about winning. You want to make sure that you have fundamentals so that by the time they get to high school, they can win, right? And that's really, or maybe a little earlier, but winning comes as they get older. But I think so often now it's third grade, fourth grade. It's like, we got to win now. It's like we have the priority and the wrong focus, and so it's like trying to massage the parents back into, hey, it's okay if we don't win today, and everybody plays the same amount, and we try to get reps and we try to do stuff. 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, we can start focusing on winning a little bit more every year. But I think that's one of the things that drives this, this whole, jumping onto a travel team somewhere else or whatever. It's this drive to win at such a young age. And I think sometimes that's good. Competitiveness is awesome, but it also can lead you down a path of maybe getting to that 8th grade year and you don't have great fundamentals anymore. But
I think, to that point, Jeremy, I think too, I think there's a difference between being successful and winning
mhm,
and being competitive, right? And so I agree. Like, I mean, I like to win as much as the next person,
yeah,
but I think if you take the term of being successful and ask that first, to me, it's sure if we win, that's fantastic, but are we at least being competitive, right?
yes,
No one wants to just get blown out. That's going to ruin
true,
your retention as well, because they're going to be like, well, this sucks. I'm going to go try something
right,
else where we're at least competing.
correct,
And I think that has to be kind of at the forefront of every youth program as well.
yeah,
And then too, like I see many sports going down this route where it's not just by grade level, it's age or, 12U, 10U or whatever. At least it allows the opportunity for kids that maybe are advanced to move up and play appropriate levels. Because again, if you have a person that's just bigger, faster, stronger, what good is it for the overall team or the kids that they're playing against? But also, what good is it for them? How are they developing and getting better, right? And so,
yeah,
I think not all sports are created equal in that concept, or at least leadership isn't to that point yet. But I think that's something to always kind of look at too, is putting the kids in the right position, not based off of the parents' request, but having a self evaluation or an outside evaluation of the player's talents and really seeing where that should go.
I have a great example of that. We're doing it right now, and it's again. I'm going to go back to baseball because that's where I live my life. So enjoy.
do it.
Amherst Baseball. I've been running the T-ball and coach pitch now since I stepped in this role, and that was before my kids were of age. But last year I saw it right away. My 7-year-old is playing in coach pitch, which is 7 and 8-year-olds. The Amherst, the way it works, T-ball first, right, for 5 and 6. 7 and 8-year-olds play coach pitch, and then you're off into 10U and 12U and 14U and into high school. And then there's also this big giant operation right next door called Plover Baseball, and that thing is a giant cash cow, and
Machine.
it's a machine that pummels out win win win, and nothing else matters.
Yeah,
And that's awesome. By the way, that's awesome for the development of the kids who are capable and are enjoying that to wear the Plover uniform and travel all around. If that's what you want and the kid's ready for it, it's awesome. It really is.
mhm,
However, it just feels strange to me to say, hey, 9-year-old, you're good enough to be on this team. This 9-year-old, you're not good enough to be on that team. And this 9-year-old, you're actually not good enough for either of those. So you can't play in this. That's the kind of stuff that, it's bordering on what I think part of this problem is. But where I'm going with this, though, is Amherst 8U is something I'm creating this year. What I saw was last year I had 6, 7-year-olds, because they're around my son. They're playing in my backyard the last year. They're wasting their time in coach pitch. It's a spongy ball. Right? They're actually, their parents are playing catch with them when they're not at my house and when they're not at the ball field, so they're ready. And then honestly, what happens is the pitcher and the first baseman are on different levels. I have a 7-year-old playing first base who doesn't even know what baseball is and has a glove on his wrong hand, and the pitcher picks up the ball and he's throwing the dang thing. So I mean, you have a situation that's not right. That's not safe. And you're
yeah,
teaching the pitcher not to throw the ball to first. He's going to drop it, and then the base runner will keep going. So
yeah,
there became a problem. So to fix it, again, this is a different situation for different people because I'm running this. It's my responsibility. I created an 8U this year. All the 8-year-olds, all 12 of them, are going to be with me, and I'll coach it. I'll set up my own schedule for them, a 12-game schedule and one tournament to have some fun in Clintonville. And we don't get, we want to be competitive, but I'm not going to stress winning. The scoreboard will be on, so winning plays a role. Let's not pretend it
yep,
doesn't. Part of the
yep,
game. The kids also can see right through it. If there's no scoreboard, then they're keeping score in the dugout, and the score's never
yes,
right, and it's all over the board. So don't run away from it, but just
agreed.
don't make that the priority. It's part of it, not the goal. And at the end of the game, there's nothing wrong with getting in the car and saying, "Hunter, we won. Right? That was awesome. You did this, you did that, and we won because of the whole team's result. Right? It's great. Just don't make it all about the trophy at the end." So, I mean, that's kind of an example, though, of you need to challenge each individual kid. So that means on that team this summer, if there's a 7-year-old that's going to waste his time in coach pitch, it's my job to bring him with us on the 8U games.
Mhm.
But then you have that numbers problem, especially in a small town like Amherst. I'm aware that I'm gonna run into some friction with some certain families that don't think it's right that 7-year-olds playing where an 8-year-old team should have 8-year-olds on the field and so on and so forth. It's gonna happen. Just be ready for it and have a good, clear, very clear answer of how you're going to communicate through it. So
Well,
it's easy to
that's
say,
interesting
hard to
because
execute. When
Jeremy,
you
I don't know
have
if you
parents
know this
calling
or
me at
not, but if his
midnight this
daughter
summer,
does not
I'll be happy to
score
jump on again
a
and share
goal,
some
then
frustration. But
she takes
I
it to
know
the
it's
she takes the
coming. I just
floor,
believe that's the
and
right
no,
answer, and I'll just deal with
I
those
mean, there's not even a
consequences as they
pillow
come.
sometimes. I mean, she rattled off like 15 goals this year. It was pretty impressive, but I think she did it out of fear.
That's right. No beds. No beds unless you score.
Right. No, Bill, what is your philosophy on, and we talk about this all the time because now our
Hey,
daughter's
you
a
got to set a
freshman,
Well,
boundary
on
somewhere.
playing freshmen on
that's
the
good
varsity level. I
Absolutely.
parenting
don't
for
know if you have
some.
the players to, do you have a JV team and a freshman team, or just right? It's amazing.
Yep. Yep. It doesn't always happen this way, but the numbers in Amherst have imagine that they seem to echo the success. So
Way too many for one
we had
team.
18 kids come out my first year in 2019. 18, by the way, in the world of
8.
baseball, is the second worst number you could possibly have. It's not enough for two teams, and it's way too many for one.
What's
So
the worst
we had
number? Just out of curiosity.
nine or
Nine.
eight. So 8 would be the worst. I gotta play, and then we gotta try and do that whole shave every day and try and grow some hair. Doesn't work for me. So yeah, we had 18. COVID year we would have had 22. And then 2021
Wow,
we had
impressive.
25. And last year we had 28. I'm forecasting and talking to kids, and you make a state run and you get a lot of attention from that too. I'm expecting about 34 to come out for baseball this year. And again,
Wow.
that's it. But now we're fringing on a third problem, right? Or another problem. We don't have 3 teams, and we don't have the busing and the money, and the program doesn't have. We don't have competitors around us that can handle that many, games. We're not going to play against Spash freshmen. We're going to get smoked there. But maybe our JV could handle playing them. So just we end up, no matter what in life, you end up with problems. No matter what, it's kind of life's way of saying, too far left. All right, now too far right. Now try and keep staying in between. It's like Oregon Trail, man. You just can't get down the river at the end of the game. I didn't survive dysentery to die in the river every dang time.
I should have worn my I died of dysentery shirt tonight. Dang it.
Another idea, in case you guys go apparel, you should have an Oregon Trail with like parents on the one side and referees on the other, and we're just trying to navigate that river.
Well, that's a good idea.
I'm in marketing. I'm here all day.
Hey, I'll tell you this though. I don't think you give yourself enough credit. I still think you guys would be competitive, but I'm not of this mindset that just because it's a bigger school that they're gonna run roughshod. I've heard people say like, "Oh, well, we could take this whatever school." It's like, are you sure about that? Like, you guys, you put, just go to your football team. You've got a few NFL players, Division I college players. It's like, I think you guys would hold your own. I think you'd be fine.
You may be right. I'd rather not find out the hard way and then have a bunch
Joe,
of those
your daughter
poor
plays
dads shooting
basketball,
me
right?
texts all
AAU.
night. Now I'm getting slack from parents, and I
Yeah.
got
So
the
how far
four
do you
guys
travel with
yelling
that?
at me.
That's a different
Sometimes I like to
animal.
make sure my bed is nice and soft at night. I don't need all this problem.
There you go.
Yes. We're set to, in April, we leave for Virginia Beach. Um, we'll go Louisville last year, Iowa, Indiana, Chicago,
Because
obviously. Um, we have not played in
and we have a
state
girl on
now
our
for
girl on our soccer team.
a year and a half, two
But
years. I mean, we played in state during COVID. That was about it. But
okay, because I've seen
I
the
mean,
scores on
if we
Facebook, and
play
I'm
in
like,
state, we win
oh,
by
it was 29-0.
40.
I mean, like it's like at some point, right? Like, and I don't think the bench is going to
Well,
get any
they're on
help.
the
They're
same
probably
team,
just
right,
as good.
Joe?
It's and so
Evans, yeah, Kennedy.
yes, you have to
Yeah.
travel 500 miles to get competitive.
Yeah. It's a And that was playing up a year as well. And we were still, yeah. I mean, obviously, as you know, it's a group that is all athletes. They eat, breathe, drink alike. They think alike. And
You're not moving to Kimberly,
it's
right?
fun. It's a night and day difference when you go from that to
Oh, breaking news, folks.
kind of more of the community based school programs. It's rough. We've been asked.
Wow.
What?
Right? NIL money? Your name went wild?
We've been asked by about half dozen schools to move or to transfer.
Wow. What kind of deals you getting there?
No,
Kimberly's
no,
not
it's
going to win
just
state title in
again,
basketball.
it's honestly
See, Kimberly's not going to win any state titles
the
in
selling
basketball,
pitch
are they?
is the premise of winning and really state titles. It's that
Well,
mentality,
Amelia's
right?
coming to
And
Bayport. She's living in her basement. I'm fixing it up right now.
Kimberly set up pretty good. What's that?
Breaking news, too?
Girls, they have
Right?
all the makings of it.
We'll talk about that later. But is girls basketball in the state of Wisconsin like that?
Sounds like a no comment.
There's two ways to look at it, right? Is your team just comprised of such really good athletes that playing around here isn't worth it?
Yeah.
Or is basketball around here not valid? Because I mean, if you're beating teams from Madison, Milwaukee, we've got to have some good basketball down there, correct?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, as a whole, you look at girls basketball. I mean, the state of Wisconsin, I think, is now catching up. I mean, you look at the last number of years. We've had a number of girls, go on and play at the next level, which is fantastic. And even if you take that to the, in the Midwest in general, you look at Paige Beckers over at UConn. She's injured now, but the Ali Zabel just accepted a UConn offer, and so 5-10 years ago, Wisconsin was not seeing those type of recruits.
Why
so
does
now
UW
I think that
women's basketball
we're
can't
on
get off the ground? And I don't
the
know, maybe
map a
they're
little
the
bit more.
but
We're
they've
going to
struggled.
these other
UW's
tournaments. We're playing
put
year
them in their place
round.
for
You're
years
starting
with
to see
Kevin Borseth over here.
the fruit of that,
and we're
coming
just a
to
small
fruition,
D1 school, but
which is
it
nice
seems
to
like
see.
the Badgers can't put it together. Are they just trying to recruit? I mean, if they just looked in their backyard, they'd probably be able to pull something off that's even better than.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it, right? I mean, I think you even look at the guys program at times, right? Like the inability to recruit in the state, I think, has been a little bit of a knock on them in general. You look at obviously the Hauser boys, obviously from the Stevens Point market, that was um, kind of a sore subject with a lot of fans. I think that they would have loved to see them play,
Yep.
locally. And so I think the same thing is for the women's program, and again, I know they've gone through some
Yeah,
coaching
that'd be
changes
unbelievable.
as well. And so hopefully, they're able to rebuild that program. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I would love to see a phone call or an email at some point from UW Madison for Jada. That would be, certainly an honor.
Yeah, I still have struggled to figure out why that is. I mean, there's certain things that I know that probably can't say, but I don't understand why there's athletes in the backyard that don't get recruited, and especially when it's a no-brainer. Like I'd understand if, you always have that maybe that fringe player that they have some talent, but maybe they're not top tier, and so they want to chase a D1 offer somewhere else. But it just seems like we have guys and gals in the state of Wisconsin that just don't get any love, and I don't
Mhm.
understand what they are looking for. Like it's like you didn't like the 6'6" kid that can shoot threes and play the post. Like I don't I don't understand. What are you looking for? Or the girl that can drive around everybody and score and you can do every level, play every position, and yet nothing, like no interest. It's like, I guess we just don't really care. I don't know. It's been amazing to me, like when that happens, and you see it happen sometimes in football. I'm sure, Bill, you see it in baseball. It's like, I just don't get it sometimes. I guess it's a certain coach is looking for a certain thing. I get that too, but sometimes it's
Well,
perplexing.
it's interesting too. What comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? And so, do you want to do the recruits want to go to a program that's not a winning program,
True.
or do they want to go there to build a winning program, right? And so, even in conversations with Jada, it's been this idea, this concept of we've gone to a few Badger women's games to watch, and there's very few fans, so as a big time school, you kind of lose that lackluster, right? Especially when you're a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid kind of looking at, well, what do I want with that experience? And, but at some point, there's got to be some girls that take advantage and take a leap of faith. Now, whether their offers are there or not, but you look at, Toby, even in your region, the last couple of years, you had, Jordan Mamolis and Emily LaChapelle in the De Pere and Appleton area. One went to Marquette, the other one's out
Marquette's
in
not afraid to
Butler.
look locally. I mean, they've pulled some really good talent.
Again, I don't
in
know
the
if
basketball
the
scene.
Badgers ever had
They're back
their
on
eye on
top.
them or vice
They might have made
versa,
a
but
bad coaching
certainly two
decision a
top
while
players
back and kind of
from
changed that
Wisconsin
over.
that
But
did not end up in
yeah, it's just
in Badger Red.
interesting that you'd think Badger Red would just want to be everything local, and it's.
Right.
They haven't asked me. I'm going to be honest. They haven't called me or asked me why. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is
Same.
perplexing though. It doesn't make sense, right? I mean, Joe said it right. I think the chicken and the egg thing is probably a big part of
Yeah.
it. I know a lot of high schoolers, as they're considering where to go, you consider your major, you consider your locality, so your parents can watch you play. You'd think those would be things that would make UW appealing, and then maybe it's just I don't want to go there, and then like one of your guests had, she gets there and coaching change, and now it's not the same. It's really, and you only get one shot, so go somewhere that you're going to be happy. There could also be a very clear elephant in the room here. Maybe the kids just don't want to be in the snow like this, this many months out of the year. Why not go south a little bit and go enjoy a little bit warmer weather for 4 years? So I don't know. Just, a lot of things go into the mind of a high school kid.
Yeah.
I'm just
And a
hoping my
17-year-old
gets
is
to
not
school on
necessarily
time
prepared to make
right
all these
now.
choices.
I mean,
And
that's
to some
where
extent,
we're at.
it's perplexing because it's a strange thing to tell a 17-year-old to go off to college for the next 4 years and expect them to make a logical choice or what have you.
So the only thing I would add on that is the situations where I hear about a kid that didn't even like they didn't even talk to him.
Yeah.
That's the one that really bothers me. Like you've got this, and I'm not going to say any names on that, but I've heard of that a few times where that just like they didn't even reach out to him. And that's what's crazy to me. But what are you going to do? I did want to ask you, Bill, on when you guys went from building the program to having really good success. Did that change, like college coaches reaching out and asking about your players? I would assume it did.
Yeah, kind of. I played college ball, and what happens naturally is a lot of the kids I played high school against are now assistant coaches at programs throughout the area.
Okay.
So what happens too is I reached out preseason because I had 4 kids that said they want to play college baseball. One of them was 6'6" and a pitcher with great care and puts a lot of work into everything he does, and 4.0 and everything you could want. So
Wow.
I have a blue chip. So let's make sure he gets every shot. So I
Mhm.
was on the phone. I was the one calling them as a junior already, saying, "Please watch and tell me if this isn't what you're looking for, tell me what you are."
Right.
And I got a lot of really positive feedback, and that kid ended up going to UW Milwaukee. So
Nice.
a D1 school, it's the only D1 school with baseball in the state. So he ended up staying here in the state. And, he's there. He's thriving as far as I know, as long as he's not, sneaking out at night and going to parties and doing all that crap right now. But, there's, to your point, I guess, Jeremy, that frustration that you have about kids not being reached out to that deserve it. Are you talking at the D1 level or at any college level?
Sometimes both. I mean, that's the I've seen it a little bit on even lower levels. With some of the coaching I've done at Spash, and I've done some proactive reaching out, just trying to get some names out that I'm just kind of surprised at. But there have been a couple that D1, that I've personally talked to the parents and said, just, hey, tell me what happened kind of behind the scenes, and they're like, yeah, that school never called, or that school was never even interested. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, it's just surprising to me when you see, and now you see that kids in the professional leagues at whatever sport it is. And there's a couple, and it's just amazing to me that they nobody ever inquired.
Yeah. One piece of my 2 cents on the topic. If you have a son or daughter that's probably more of a D3 or a D2 level athlete, I think you're not overstepping by reaching out to the schools they're interested in, and do so as a junior already, mainly because if you're talking about UW Stout or UW Stevens Point, you're looking for athletes. And these athletes are
Right.
I've got 4 of them this year that are 3-sport athletes. 2 of them in particular could choose if they want to play D3 football, D3 baseball, or just call it quits and go live your college life and be happy that way. One of the kids told me he wants to, and he's frustrated that no one's asking him. I just told him, do you think UW lacrosse's baseball coach knows you want to play baseball? I don't think he has a clue. So let's tell him that you want to, and then ask him, what do you need from me to make it happen? But also, it shouldn't come from me. It should come from you, the kid. You should be reaching out and learn to be an adult in this stuff. So, that's my feedback for people hearing this, parents hearing this. If your son or daughter is more of a D2 or D3, you're not out of line to go ask schools and ask, what do you need from me to be on the radar? Ask your coaches to vouch for you. Ask somebody, your club coaches. There's ways to do it. I just think sometimes people don't know what the colleges are doing. Their day-to-day right now is busy. That just doesn't mean they have time to go look at the kid at Amherst who could go to college for whatever he wants, wherever he wants.
Right. The other thing that you bring up that I just want to interject real quick is that at D3, sometimes you can even play multiple sports. There was an athlete that I was there when I went to UWSP. She was an amazing athlete. She was all conference in track, soccer, and basketball. She won a national title in basketball multiple times. She almost won a title in soccer, and I think they might have won conference as a track star. Like, she was just an amazing athlete, and because it's D3, they let her play multiple sports. So sometimes D3 can actually be a really cool spot for an athlete that maybe doesn't want to specialize in one, and they're just a really superb athlete. They can go and do
struggling
to their heart's content.
into college door. There's
I
a
would
great
warn
book
them
out.
too
It's
that the
called Looking
commitment is
for
crazy.
a Full
But yes,
Ride
you can
by
do that.
Coach
It's
Renee
just a
Lopez.
crazy
Actually,
amount
we
of.
ordered it on
It's
Amazon.
nuts.
You're not a college student anymore. You're going to
It talks
be.
to the
You're going
grassroots.
to be on
This is true.
She's not an
This
NCSA
is
or
true.
whatever the recruiting is. It is a grassroots. She's got a great Facebook page. Actually, I reached out to her on Saturday about having her on, and she got back to me. She asked if we had 100 episodes, and I didn't feel like lying, so I said we had 12. But it is a really good read. Right. I will text her tomorrow and be like, we're at 13, just saying, just keeping you abreast. But that's 14, right? But it's an amazing read, and if you go on Facebook and like the page,
13 now.
really the questions are asked of, what should I be doing? And it breaks down exactly how to talk to coaches, email, go to camp.
Well, we
And
had 2
it's
guests,
just
so it counts
interesting
double. So
instead of just paying a fee for somebody, and that works too. I know a lot of kids that have done both. So it's just another avenue where people, where money is an issue, and we all, let's be honest, money's an issue for all of us to keep throwing at things. So it's just a really good book. Now, Joe, you go to tournaments like when you're down in Virginia Beach, right? I mean, there are college coaches lined up. I mean, are they looking at U14, U15? Yeah, and I think that's the biggest misconception, right? We're going down to
That is-
I'll put a link in the show
St.
notes.
Louis. and everybody wants to think that somebody's got their eye on us, and it's usually the juniors. I think in high school soccer, the junior age group is the one that gets recruited. I don't know about basketball or
Not
baseball
really.
per se, but I'm sure basketball has a different avenue, right? Because you could tell if they got height. Doesn't height kind of draw people in?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, again, do we get some that trickle down in between? Watching the top courts? Sure. Or do they hear about some of our younger teams if our older teams are successful? Yeah. And again, we've had some of the local, the UW Milwaukee's GBs come watch, our game as seventh graders playing up, and again, and that's good, right? But it's not, it's not a bleacher full. It's not wall to wall coaches with clipboards. It's certainly not that. To watch that is certainly amazing. You watch those top courts, and there's some tournaments. It's the who's who of college coaches. And that's pretty neat to see. But with the transfer portal and some of those things now,
Yeah.
I think that
I
kind
think
of
that portal is
affected
going to do a lot of damage
some of
to
the timing and
small
how far
majors,
down they really
UWGB
go, because they don't need
basketball,
to,
and
right? I
things
mean,
like that. I think
they can
because
open up the portal and get
are
what
you
they
going to really
need,
stick around a losing program when you can
and so
transfer
it
out at the
kind
drop
of
of a dime and
kept everything on track again,
go play
regardless of,
basketball?
of the talent. Well, but again, there's another side to that though too. Is you know, um, there's kids that are going to the higher programs out of high school because again, they're promised maybe a lot in that recruiting process, and then they get there and maybe it's not what they expected, or they're sitting the bench, and for a lot of these players, and my daughter included, like she's been a starter every year,
Right.
never really came off the bench. That's an adjustment for a lot of kids, and so there's some that they'll get there and be like, no, I want to go play, and so they're going to go to maybe a smaller school, and whether it's a small major or even a D2 or D3, just to play, and we've seen certainly a number of examples of that. One of the with eighth grade now with our Point Hoops program, we're fortunate to have a former college coach. She coached at Cleveland State for a number of years, and so it's interesting to hear her perspective and her background. Where, yeah, she would recruit these top players and top athletes, and the reality is you're still only playing 7 or 8 in a game, and for as she kind of put it in some of the conversations, it's a job now for these kids, and some will get a bad attitude and say, this is ridiculous, I'm out of here. And
Yeah, I guess
even
it can work
though they
both
have a
ways. You
full
hope
ride,
it keeps some of these
they
basketball
still don't
programs intact.
appreciate, well, not necessarily appreciate it, but they want to go
You know,
play,
we
and
are
so
struggling
maybe they
at
leave and
UWGB.
go
We
down a
did win.
level
We
and
beat my
give
alma
up the
mater,
full ride,
UW
and
Milwaukee, which was just
what do you
depressing.
do?
But then again, I don't follow Panther sports like I used to. Never did, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, they had Butler, and then they took Butler out.
right.
The Horizon League's kind of always that way, though. It's a little bit, sometimes it's really competitive, and then sometimes it's not so competitive.
Isn't it interesting though, to that point, how fortunate, we live in these communities that have universities with programs, whether it be UW Stevens Point or GB or even Milwaukee in our own backyard.
Yeah.
But do we ever really value those experiences, right? Like we want to go to a basketball game. Let's go to UW Madison. Let's go see the Badger men's basketball. And again, it's still great basketball or great football or baseball, even at these other
You
schools,
can't tell us
these
why you
smaller,
went, or you can't
maybe a
tell
little
us why
smaller
you did.
markets.
You
But
don't go.
I think, again, I've lived in Point now for 20 plus years. I think I've been to one basketball game. And I can't tell you why.
That
It just,
surprises me.
yeah. No, I can't tell you why I haven't gone to more. I mean, it's such a, but again, when you start having kids, you're like, well, let's go to the high school game, or let's,
Yeah.
um, or when you're in college, it's like, oh, homecoming. Yeah, we're going to go to the game. Well, you end up partying a little longer than you expected. And next thing you know, the game's over and everyone's, at the watering hole. So
Made it to the parking lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great point. I'm curious why it is that way too. I grew up in Whitewater, another college town, but growing
Yeah.
up, remember different era, right? We're talking the '90s. We went to all the
Yeah, we
college
did all
games. I
GB,
would go to
but we had.
doubleheaders on the
I
weekends
I
if
was
the
coming
Warhawks were
right behind
playing in
Tony
town.
Bennett, so
I
GB
wonder if
games were
kids
kind
in
of a big
Whitewater
deal.
right now are doing the same, or if this is kind of
But no
a
other
trend
sports.
that's
Well, we do
changed.
soccer. We do
Did you
soccer games
guys,
on
when you
Friday
were
night because
younger,
we could
go to
drink behind
college
the
level
bleachers
games?
out of
I
UWGB.
remember going to the WIAC games.
Catholic school kids. Right.
Yeah. Of course you could.
Sorry, I'm the only loser. I never went to any. The first college game I ever went to was actually a UWSP game when I enrolled in 2001. But yeah, I'd never been to anything. First college football game I ever went to was the one I was suiting up in. So I,
That's
so
cheating.
I'm,
That's cheating.
yeah, that's a little different. So yeah, I had not gone to many, honestly. I do enjoy them. Um, but yeah, I'm with Joe. Now I'm in the community. I don't go to that many games. I mean, it's kind of sad. I know my father-in-law goes. He's a season ticket holder. He goes to basketball all the time, but he's an alum. But even like football, I don't get to that many football games. I think a lot of it is just kids. You're running. You just don't fit it in. And maybe we should, but I just probably take it for granted.
Yeah, it could be part of the because I'm guilty as charged when what Joe's talking about. I'm not taking my kids to UW Pointer games right now. What I
Yeah,
am doing is taking them to Amherst basketball, an Amherst wrestling match, and a
correct.
Amherst whatever we can get to. I don't I don't know what it is that makes me think that way. Maybe it's just simply that's the program that we're going to come up through, and there's no
Yes.
guarantees you're going to have anything to do with UWSP. So why
Yep.
on the other hand though it could be a good element or another teaching tool to show them higher level. I just wonder if to the eyes of my kids it makes any difference. For right now, they think it's pretty cool to see high school games, and that seems to be good enough without paying a dollar for it. I'm just kind of getting the popcorn and getting a lollipop, and I sit up at the top of the bleachers and talk to those parents that I can't get enough talking to. So
Well,
I mean,
Bill,
it's
it seems like maybe you're a little different than me. One of the things I love about just going to the local Spash game is just the community. I mean, you see so many people from the community. I would imagine Amherst is that way. I've only been to one basketball game over in Amherst, but it just seems like the community is there and it brings people together. There's like that common theme and purpose, and that's what Toby and I were talking about prior in an episode. Was you just hate to see that go away because that is such a cool part of the community that you get around high school sports, but you don't get that with club. As good as club is, right? And Joe talked about how amazing that team is that they have, but you don't get 1,000 people showing up to watch that club game usually. Now maybe you guys do in the other towns and other cities, but it just doesn't seem like there's the same fervor that there is about your local high school, and that's what I like about it, that community aspect.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And it really now we're kind of fringing on what I do for a living, right? In my day job, Zaleski Sports is built on the concept that high school matters most, right?
Hmm.
To your parents, to your alumni, to your community, to everything. Our job is to keep people interested in high school sports. So it's kind of the counteract to not the club because not that's not necessarily the issue, but it's to your point. You hate to see that die. I don't want to see high school athletics
Yeah.
become obsolete or become the secondary. Zaleski Sports is fighting that battle, just trying to keep that ship upright, and just by putting a spotlight, making it available in a world filled with technology. How do we keep people invested and caring about it? This is an easy way to do so. So, not to throw
Hmm.
that plug in, but it really borders on part of that battle is in that tech world, and how do we make it available if you don't want to bring. I struggle with it. I got 3 kids, including a 2 and a 4-year-old. it's chaos. If I bring these kids, right, we're at the top of the bleachers. Amherst gym isn't big. There's popcorn flying, and we got soda spilling.
Yo,
We got
Jeremy, we
a
could splice
2-year-old
some of
who's
our
an hour and a
broadcast
half
tape,
past
send it over.
bedtime.
I'm not saying that
If
he
my
could
wife
probably
comes
use us.
with, I'm
I'm
going to have
just
an angry
saying.
wife for about 48 hours after. So that's all part of it, right? It's
Sounds like a
how do
slice of paradise.
it's beautiful. It's beautiful, right?
Come to the
YOLO.
coast,
Only
have a
live
beer,
once.
it'll be
Let's
fun,
enjoy
they
this.
say.
Yeah.
We will talk. I got the printer. We got
Bill,
the
I
logo.
guess
We're ready.
what I'm hearing though too is Zaleski the first sponsor that this podcast is going to have? I mean,
Hey, those shirts that we're talking about, maybe a little trademark, a little Zaleski in the corner, throw you some money this way and that way. There's all kinds of possibilities. Let's not close any doors here.
Actually,
It's gonna be awesome.
I do want you to explain to, because I'm very familiar with Zaleski Sports. We have a lot of listeners. If we look at the demographics in Green Bay, they may not be as familiar. I would like you to talk a little bit about Zaleski Sports, kind of what you guys do, just so people have an understanding.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Zaleski Sports, what happened here in 2018, so pre-COVID, it's an empty nester. Jason Zaleski out of Marshfield. No kids in the house, and what do we do? I mean, at that point, your life is so used to having that regiment, and now he had so much free time that he went out and bought a couple of $8,000 and $10,000 cameras. I'm sure his wife was really pleased about that.
I'm sure.
He showed up at a couple of Marshfield games and just broadcasted on YouTube. He knew his technology and voiced it himself. It was just a simple one camera thing, and one thing kind of led to another. People slapping him on the back saying that's really cool. He added Columbus Catholic. He added Spencer. He added Stratford. So just the Marshfield area. And then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, again, he's got 4 cameras at this point, and his wife's telling him, "Stop buying cameras. This isn't making us money, and you're just spending money for nothing." A couple of sponsors, and now COVID means there's games going on with no fans in the stands. And how does a school get it out? I'm sure 400 schools in Wisconsin tried sending a 17-year-old to the top of the grandstand with a tablet and trying to do it. And every one of them experienced the same problem. That's not going to work. So overnight, he probably had 20 phone calls from schools saying, "Can you do it for us?" And originally it was, the schools needed to pay something because you got to buy cameras and pay staff. And it became a real career, a real company. But what happened then, we no longer take money from any schools. We're up to 22 high schools throughout central Wisconsin that we partner with. And what we do is broadcast their athletics, boys and girls, every sport. Typically, we'll carry 35 to 40 games every week. It's all live and free, streaming on YouTube. So, our schools are any school that you would encounter within Marshfield, Wisconsin Rapids, Stevens Point, Wapaka, Amherst, Mosinee, Wausau. All of those schools are our core, and we'll be adding Eau Claire coming up soon.
Yeah, it's really cool. And just from a fan's perspective, I can tell you that they're awesome. I mean, the broadcasts are good, good quality, and it's just nice to sometimes have the streaming option. There's been a couple times where it's like, I really want to see that game, but I couldn't make it up to DC Everest, right? And all of a sudden, Zaleski's there, and that's usually kind of what the habit now in Central Wisconsin is. Hey, let's see where Zaleski is this week because maybe we can just get that broadcast, which is kind of cool. So
yeah. It is admittedly, though, still it's in its infancy, right? We're in year 4 of existence, so it's moving really quickly and fast. It's been fun for me to join. I had 12 years in radio before that, and this is the shift was kind of like, oh my God, you mean I can make that working in high school sports all the time? And he said, one better, also in the spring at noon, stop working every day, just go be a coach. So I'm, wow, bend my arm and make me really want it. That's awesome. It's been a godsend. Jason himself is awesome. The product is I'd like to think it's great, but there's room for improvement. I think I'd be the first to admit it's not perfect. Yeah. We have all kinds of different things that we're trying to coordinate, and we depend on young people to show up on time and hold cameras, and it's a moving piece. So
is Joe going to be doing this soon?
I'm trying to recruit him. He's holding firm. He keeps on saying he's got kids and life's hard.
I was going to say, that's not true. I'm awkward, but again, I can only fit so much in the schedule.
He's got time to go golfing on Fridays, but holding a camera for high school athletes to have their careers on HD, no time for that.
So does Does
I
Amherst
want
Baseball get top
the
billing? Are you
announcer
guys on like
position. I don't want
prime
to just hold the
time?
camera.
Nobody in their right mind would give you a microphone. Wait a second. Oh no.
These two did.
Yeah.
It's
What do we
basic.
know? That's awesome. That might be the title.
I pressed them pretty hard. No, remember, I joined in April of last year. So in the middle of, we were like 8-0 at the time. And when I joined, I was kind of telling him, like, you're going to broadcast every game we have, right? And he kind of, well, you got to be good. I'm like, oh, we'll be good. Just keep the camera rolling. Just watch this show. But then we went and screwed it up, as Joe loves to remind me. We screwed it up at state, and it's amazing to me how defeating that feels to be close to something. It's not just baseball, right? This is a life lesson, and that's what I keep telling the kids. It's not meant to be a cliche; it's a truth. Athletics really teaches you life. That's the whole point here, right?
Yep.
So these kids, undefeated, perfect
Was
season.
that at
We're on
in
Channel
Appleton?
7 and Channel 9 doing
That,
our celebrations are on
think I
TV, and
was there.
Zaleski Sports is covering it. Everyone's flying high, and then 0-0 game into the 7th inning at state, and then we lose with 2 outs on an error, a mistake by a player, a young athlete who just oops. But learning. Yes, correct. Yep. But I mean, the drama, the beauty of the game that I love so much. I like to tell people it's an accumulation of imperfect randomness. And what I mean by that, a fastball on the inside part of the plate. Some hitters have the hands to get their bat through, and if you miss by a centimeter on the bat, that's the difference between a 325-foot double off the wall and a 310-foot flyout. So people say it's a game of inches. It can be centimeters. It also can be inches. And there's also that element, if Joe Blow, base runner on first base, is going to steal second at state, let's say on a beautiful sunny day on a minor league baseball field with great dirt, the catcher can't throw him out if he gets a good jump. Take the same catcher, same pitcher, same scenario, same base runner, and now we're playing at Amherst in April 2nd in 35 degrees, and it rained all morning, so the ground is sloppy. There's no way that runner is going to get there in time. So now you're taking all these random elements that all play in, and then somehow if you practice a lot, you'll still be really good. You can still sway the odds in your favor in baseball. Doesn't mean though that random events can't happen.
Baseball is
the fly ball gets caught or that ground
passion.
ball is right
I've loved
at
every
somebody.
minute of it.
There's just all that random baked in.
My kids.
I just that's why I love the game. It's just
right?
you don't have control over everything, so you have to accept the chaos and just do the best you can to sway it in your favor.
You know what? I'm gonna go tell my wife right now. I'm going to Amherst, getting me an
Baseball
apartment.
camp.
Cool.
That's right. That'd be amazing. I threaten to go back to college
You
all the
could
time,
use
but
you
I'm
in
getting a
Amherst.
dorm room.
I need
I
good
am
quality
all
young
in.
men to help lead these little boys into growing boys into high school men and get them off to college.
Rent's cheap. I don't think Amherst baseball assistant coach makes a ton,
We
but
got
they
the
make enough.
recipe. I just need the cooks. No college.
We'll get you in our
Okay.
barn. I'll get you a place in our barn.
That's great.
What they don't
Anything
make
else?
in money, they make on Friday nights when they come over to my place. They don't bring a thing. Let's just put it that way, and they leave full. There's that arm twisting again.
That's awesome. Well, cool. I suppose as we land this plane, Joe, anything else you'd like to add onto the conversation?
No, I think we covered a lot of great ground. I think again, just to kind of recap, it's everyone's at a different place. I think Bill said it best a few times,
Yeah.
but everything is starting earlier. I mean, I think I remember back starting sports or basketball at 5th grade. Nowadays, if you start that late, you have a lot of catching up to do, and I'm not sure it's possible. And so again, it's starting young, starting on the fundamentals, and within the fundamentals, making it have fun, and then reinforce some of that stuff in the backyard or the driveway, because it's gonna pay dividends. And then the travel and all that craziness is inevitable. It's going to happen. You're going to have to do it. It's part of the game, I guess, if you will. But you'll be more prepared and you'll have more fun because you're ready for it.
Agreed. I like that. Yeah, have fun, man. To anybody listening out there, make the practices fun. You will not regret it. Your kids will not regret it. In the end, it's supposed to be fun. So, Bill, anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on everything multiple times, I think, and we did a nice job of it. The only bullet point I had written down was not being afraid of that. If you're a coach, right, making sure that you ask questions, right? If you're leading something, go ask the person in charge. If they didn't give you direction or guidance, and you think you need some, go get it. There's nothing wrong with that, or admitting that I need some help with it, and just to learn. Number two would be, no matter what, communicate. Be very clear about what you're trying to do and how you're going to do it. That means to the parents too. And I think a lot of that will divert that crazy word that everyone gets afraid of in the sports world, that word politics, right? It plays a role. And why does it play a role? There's so many different ingredients baked in. There's all kinds of room for parents to talk about it without talking to you. If you just are clear and you can, keep it in focus. Don't do too much. Just have a few things that you say, and you say them consistently and follow through. That'd be my advice for parent coaches out there.
I'm just kidding.
People who just want to help
Right.
out. Just try your best to be clear about communication, and it makes that politic thing
That's right.
a bit easier. And the last thing I would say is be nice to your officials. They're adults that are trying their best. No one's out to get you. Just be nice to people. Unless of course, unless of course your strike zone. Unless your strike zone is 6 inches off the outside corner, then I'm going to be yelling at you from the third base box. So anything else is acceptable, but don't be giving them too much off the outside corner.
That's right. I actually, just to end on, and not to end on this, but I saw this a quick video the other day, and it was, I felt so bad for the umpire. It was like, I think they were 10-year-old kids, and they were just riding this umpire. It was like a 60-second clip, and he just turned around. He's like, "I'm done. I'm going to leave." And he just walked off the court, and they're like, "You can't quit." It's like, "Sure as hell can." And he just walked off. I'm like, good for this guy.
No, I appreciate it, man. What an easy conversation to have about.
Yeah, we do need to be nice to the refs. I mean, we've talked about it before, but yeah, there can be frustrations with the refs, but man, it's kind of an thankless job for the most part. So
youth sports is
yeah. Toby, anything else you wanted to add?
That's fantastic. And Joe, with your job and everything you're doing with Special Olympics, and you can see the great country that we call America in the car, and travel for basketball, which is fantastic. So, man, what an easy conversation to have. So we really appreciate it. And we're going to get to Amherst. I don't know. But I'm going to steal a baseball hat. That's what we're going to do. All right, now we're talking.
That's mutual.
Thanks for having us on.
Appreciate meeting you guys.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, how about this? Make it down to Fox Valley Stadium with the new additions and everything, and I will. I
got a couple extras. I might even have the team autograph one.
I'll cheer for you over Spash any day.
Let's win something special first to make it kind of extra special, but you might want to wait till May. Not gonna lie, baseball in the spring is a little bit chilly, so it's
smooth.
Okay. Cheer away.
I'll bring my talents to
you don't
Stevens
have
Point.
To drive there. It'll be right there on Zaleski Sports, ZaleskiSports.com.
There we go.
And last thing, let's not forget the gauntlet that's been laid out too. I mean, I know we're all going to get busy here, probably with our travel times, but the pickleball stands, and I'm fairly confident in Bill's and I ability, even if it's from 5 years ago, that a beverage could be placed on this as well as a wager.
Yes.
So,
yep, big one.
I like this. I think this should happen. We would put that out so for all to see. That I think this would be a good time. I've never played, but I'm okay with my first time being in this competition. I think that'd be fun.
We could send out a link to all your subscribers. I'm sure you have thousands, and invite them for free to come watch the game.
I like it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Multiples of 10. Awesome. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. This was a lot of fun. Definitely going to be following. I know I'm going to be watching Jada for sure. And I definitely want to follow the Amherst team as well, see how you guys do.
Right.
The
My
cool thing
daughter's
about this
looking
is
at
I'm finding
UWSP.
all
I
these
better
teams that I'm
figure
going
this
to
out.
start
I
having
need some
interest in
scholarship or something.
that I
Money.
didn't before, which is great. So I love that. That's really cool.
Now you're not going to get to a UWSP game. I mean, you're too busy.
No, it's not happening.
You might want to interview somebody from UWSP, or else you're going to have politics coming at your door again. How come you guys are bashing on college sports?
Yeah, that's right.
Those feathers.
Awesome, guys. Well, hang on here for a second while we upload this baby. And really.
You got it.
Thanks, guys.